The void beyond the viewport was suffocatingly still, punctuated only by distant pinpricks of starlight that glimmered like cold promises of worlds yet to be conquered. Captain Selene Armitage stood on the command bridge of the UES Tiburon, her form framed by the vessel's high-tensile steel arches and the dim, pulsating glow of holographic displays. She wore the silver-trimmed uniform of a United Earth intelligence officer, its tailored cut accentuating both her stature and the gravity of her mission. Every breath she took was measured, each heartbeat seeming to echo through the cavernous compartment. Below the bridge lay the UES Tiburon's engine core, an intricate lattice of fusion conduits that hummed with restrained fury. 12 decks down. The warship's engineering crew monitored every quivering fluctuation in the reactor's quantum cascade. They too felt the tension. Every system, from life support to graviton projector, seemed poised on a knife's edge. Captain, intoned Commander Yao Chen, her tactical officer. Long-range scans confirm the Thraxian flotilla remains stationary. They've formed a blockade perimeter. 6 capital ships in perfect formation plus 18 heavy cruisers. Their energy signatures match everything from war readiness to full combat posture. Selene remained silent for a heartbeat longer, letting the information settle. The Thraxian dreadnought, Vorkal, loomed dead ahead. Its scaled biometallic plating shimmered like liquid emerald beneath the dying twin suns of Jarthul. The dreadnought's tendrils, vast, sinewy projections of crystalline muscle, coiled outward, betraying a living architecture, as though the ship were an enormous arthropodal creature ready to strike. "Condition red," Selene ordered softly. The bridge lights dimmed to a scarlet hue as the red alert klaxon resonated. The entire crew sank into practiced readiness. Holographic schematics snapped into place, highlighting the Thraxian vessels, their weapon arcs, and projected paths of potential boarding craft. Every seraphic android and human officer snapped to their stations, adhering to the drills they had practiced for months, ever since the diplomatic envoy first encountered Thraxian intransigence. A moment later, Admiral Gregor Halsey's visage materialized in a hololink above the central console. His uniform bore the insignia of Fleet Command, 3 blazing stars set in golden wreaths, an emblem that commanded respect even across subspace transmission. At 60 years old, Halsey's brow was creased in solemn lines. Age had etched victories and regrets alike upon his face. He had chosen Selene for this mission because of her unshakable resolve and exceptional diplomatic instincts. "Captain Armitage," Halsey intoned, voice low and steady. "This is your final chance. The United Earth Council stands by its embargo. Thraxian forces must withdraw from Aphrodon Prime or face interdiction." Selene's eyes flicked to the dreadnought once more. The immobilized behemoth seemed to pulse with a quiet menace, as if savoring the moment before unleashing its wrath. She steadied herself, recalling the weight of the lives that hung in the balance. Every scientist and settler on Aphrodon Prime, every soldier on board the Tiburon, and the fragile alliances that could shatter at any moment. "Sir," she replied, voice calm but unwavering, "the Thraxian flotilla will not relent. Our last envoy has returned with nothing but demands and threats. I intend to give them one final opportunity, diplomatic but unequivocal." "Proceed," Halsey said. "The Council is watching. The line has been drawn." Selene nodded, and the hololink dissolved. She turned to face her first officer, Commander Amir Haddad, a veteran of 10 campaigns who had been wounded 3 times but refused to let duty wane his spirit. He grasped her shoulder briefly, meeting her gaze with a measured determination. "Ready. The translation matrix," Amir said, "will project directly to the Vorkal's command hull. This channel must be crystal clear." "Understood," Selene affirmed. She strode toward the communications console where a slender, gold-forged interface awaited her touch. Her gloved fingers danced across the crystalline keys, initializing the quantum-entangled transmitter. Within seconds, the facility hummed, to life, and the Thraxian's emblem, a tri-lobed glyph of interwoven tendrils, flickered into view on the viewport's opposite side. The Thraxian negotiator, Zrakoth the Elder, introduced himself with a flourish of segmented mandibles. He drifted before a bioluminescent panel, his multi-limbed form bathed in pulsating greens and ambers. Each limb terminated in razor-sharp claws that scratched idly against the console's living carapace. His eyes, 6 in total, burned like molten topaz, each reflecting different shades of disdain. "Human," Zrakoth began, his voice a symphony of rasping undertones and vocal harmonizers. "Once more you defy the Hylarian conquered. Aphrodon Prime lies within our claimed sphere. Withdraw your forces, relinquish the settlement, and you shall preserve your feeble race." A chorus of whispering translations rippled through the Tiburons, comm channels, ensuring every crew member understood the ultimatum. Selene stood rigid, her gaze unbroken. "Zrakoth," she replied, voice crisp. "Aphrodon Prime declared independence 2 standard cycles ago. The United Earth Council recognized that sovereignty. Your so-called sphere of influence does not extend to a self-governed world. We will not abandon the colonists." Zrakoth's mandibles clicked in a cacophony that sounded disturbingly like amusement. "Petty words, Captain. Do you truly believe your council's ink can defy Thraxian might? Do you presume to challenge a legacy that predates your starfarers by millennia?" Selene inhaled, recalling the litany of accounts detailing the Thraxian Empire's centuries of conquest, worlds razed, cultures erased, and numerous species subjugated beneath their psionic yoke. Yet humans had grown bold, forging alliances with the Kiri collective, whose quantum phase shields even the Thraxians respected. That newfound unity emboldened her. "I am not blind to your history," Selene said deliberately. "But Earth has changed. We will defend Aphrodon Prime. Our alliances are not mere ink, they are forged in shared conviction. We do not seek war, but if you press us, we will not bend." Zrakoth paused, and the bridge grew eerily silent. In that pregnant moment, every eye on the Tiburon was locked on the dreadnought's image. The red suns above Jarthul cast macabre shadows across the bridge, and bursts of static flickered across the translators as the ship's psionic amplifiers sought to penetrate the firewall of human language. Finally, Zrakoth's eyes narrowed. "So be it," he hissed. "You defy the Thraxian Empire and you court oblivion. Know this. When the first strike falls on your defiant skulls, remember well the insolence that birthed your demise." Selene's lips curled in a semblance of a cold smile. She straightened her shoulders, every fiber of her being suffused with defiance. The tension crackled in the air like live wires. "Thank you for making it clear, Elder," she said. With a swift motion, she deactivated the channel. Back on the bridge, there was a moment's pause, then the alarms blared anew as the Tiburon systems shifted from defensive to combat. Tactical readouts scrolled across every holo display. Weapon statuses, shield integrity, fighter bay readiness. The brass and maroon filigree of the ship's insignia gleamed with intent. Selene stepped away from the communications console and gave her orders in a resolute tone. "Lieutenant Chen, raise all shields to full modulation. Commander Haddad, prepare fighter squadrons for immediate launch. Lieutenant Reyes, secure the fusion pulse cannons on Deck 7. All hands, battle stations." A river of activity surged through the bridge. Seraphic androids moved with surgical precision, coordinating with human counterparts to seal bulkheads, arm weapons, and calibrate targeting arrays. The warp tunnel maps glowed under tactical analyst Sergeant Malik DuPont's fingertips as he calculated trajectories, firing arcs, and potential collateral zones to protect the colonists on Jarthul's surface. Selene moved to stand before the viewport once more, gazing at the throbbing silhouette of Vorkal. Its weapon arrays, barrel-like protrusions lined with lethal matrices, rumbled almost imperceptibly, like a sleeping beast stirring in its lair. She felt a knot of anticipation twist in her chest, but no fear. Beyond the dreadnought, the human fleet, 27 vessels arranged in a phalanx, waited for the word to strike. Admiral Halsey's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain Armitage, this is your fleet. At my command, we will enforce the embargo. Remember your orders. Minimize civilian casualties. Preserve the colony's integrity. We strike only if they fire first." Celine inclined her head. Acknowledged, Admiral. We are ready. Below, Themjarthul's twin suns bled through the swirling decks of psionic storms that frequented the planet's upper atmosphere. Lightning forks of crimson and violet crackled over jagged mountain ranges, reflecting the tumultuous mood that now gripped both sides. This world, once hailed as a shining testament to terraforming and unity, had become the tinderbox upon which two great civilizations dared destiny. In the final moments before engagement, Celine closed her eyes for just a heartbeat, recalling her family back on Earth, her younger sister, the astrophysicist who had urged cautious diplomacy, her father, a retired fleet admiral who had once whispered that humanity's greatest weapon was its spirit. She could almost hear his steady cadence. "Stand firm, Celine, stand firm." Her eyes snapped open. The dreadnought system shifted. The telltale glow of psionic amplifiers ignited along its hull, bristling with lethal promise. On the Tiburon, the deck beneath her boots vibrated with raw power. "Weapons hot," Amir Haddad reported tone. "Clipped." Celine raised her hand, palm outward, a silent command crackling through every channel. "Hold fire," she said, voice resonant. "They haven't fired yet. Maintain position." Moments stretched into an eternity. Then, without warning, the Vorkal's dreadnought pulse cannon swept forward. Lances of emerald energy that tore through the vacuum, ripping into nothing but sparking remnants of shield particles. The thrumming concussion rolled across the Tiburon's hull like a battering ram. "Brace for impact," Celine cried. The entire ship shuddered as the Thraxian volley struck. Shield generators screamed under the strain, cascading failures across secondary systems. Lightning, this time not of the planet but of war, flared in the corridors. Celine's eyes blazed with steely resolve. She straightened, planting her feet firmly on the deck. "Return fire. Target their psionic emitters first. Let's remind them what happens when someone tries to slaughter our people." On the viewport, the human fleet's response was instantaneous. A volley of concentrated plasma torpedoes streaked into the blackness, converging on the Vorkal's flank. Explosions bloomed against the dreadnought's emerald carapace like horrific fireworks. The silence of space was rent by the thunderous roar of supercharged particle cannons. And so, with that first exchange, the last embargo failed. The die was cast. From the barren plains of Jarthul to the farthest edges of the galaxy, the clarion call of war had been sounded. Captain Celine Armitage, voice unwavering, had spoken the fateful words that would forever echo through the annals of interstellar history. "You want war? Then you've chosen death." The sky over Aphrodite Prime was roiling with smoke and ash. Beneath thick plumes that once danced like silken veils, the planet's crystalline forests, verdant sanctuaries of glass-like foliage, were now fractured spires jutting from scorched earth. In the distance, the golden spire of Aurealis Gate's central citadel stood half-shattered, its iridescent walls cracked and leaking luminous coolant. Farther on, neon tendrils of Kiri energy fields flickered in faint hope, marking the arrival of reinforcements that had been delayed by warp instabilities. But for now, humanity's defenders were trapped beneath the full weight of Thraxian wrath. Securing the perimeter, Colonel Rai Voss crouched behind a collapsed half-track, his leather-gloved hands trembling slightly as he surveyed the ruined street. Concrete and biometal debris littered the avenue like bleached bones. The assault had begun less than an hour ago. Thraxian drop pods, sleek as coiled serpents, had detonated in silent bursts across the eastern sectors, spewing forth squads of psionic infantry in obdurate, bio-fused armor. "Lieutenant Reyes," Voss growled into his comlink, "what's your status on the eastern perimeter?" Static crackled. "Colonel, we've lost 2 outposts. Civilians are in panic. Hundreds trapped behind the broken aqueducts. Psionic disruptors are jamming our comms within a 3-click radius. They're forcing them into synaptic shutdowns. We're trying to establish fallback points, but we need cover fire." Voss slid his rifle's holographic scope to life, a K-45A pulse carbine capable of shifting frequencies mid-burst. He inhaled a ragged breath and keyed his comm. "Alpha Team, hold here at all costs. Gamma, you're with me. We're heading to the Resonance Tower. If we knock out their command node, it'll relieve the Eastern Front. Move. The streets howled with distant explosions. A trio of civilian transports, hovering corvettes painted with Earth's insignia, flared overhead, strafed by invisible Thraxian beam emitters. Soldiers in gray and crimson armor darted across shattered intersections, trading fire with clawed, chitin-plated Thraxian troopers whose psychic shrieks ruptured eardrums. Every few meters, Voss passed battered refugees, mothers cradling infants, children too frail to grasp what was happening, and aged colonists weeping for lost homes. Lieutenant Marisol Reyes appeared at his side, her face smeared with ash. Her goggles' heads-up display tracked psi anomaly pockets, auras of Thraxian energy that pulsed like malignant flowers. She slapped Voss's arm. "Colonel, 4 Thraxian mechs approaching from the west lane. They're scanning for telepaths. Psi shields won't hold." Voss nodded curtly. "Gamma, intercept. Lay down convergent fire. Reyes, take point. Lead the civilians to underground shelters. I'll draw their fire." Reyes saluted and slipped into a sprint, gesturing for a convoy of refugees to follow. Voss pressed a detonator on his belt, a Curie micro-quantum grenade designed to disrupt biometal alloys. He lobbed it toward the oncoming mechs. The explosion sent shards of emerald-hued plating cascading into the air. 2 mechs toppled, their limbs twitching in final spasms as psionic cores overloaded. But the third pivoted, turret cradling a cluster of leech-like psi launchers. Voss raised his carbine, fingers tightening on the trigger. Bursts of cerulean, plasma lanced out, searing the mech's jointed torso. With a guttural pressurized shriek, it collapsed in a heap of molten steel. Nearby, Gamma Squad, 4 Kyrie-human hybrid operatives fused with chromatic ether implants, joined Voss and pinned down the 4th mech. Warp lances hummed to life, striking the creature's armored shell and fracturing the crystalline circuitry that powered its multi-core generator. The mech's legs snapped like brittle reeds, and with a final burst of psychic static, its systems went dark. Voss exhaled, and the fugitives rushed past, relief flooding their faces. "Go!" he shouted. "Shelters this way." As Reyes shepherded the civilians into underground passages, ancient mining tunnels retrofitted as emergency bunkers, Voss turned back toward the shattered city. Each block left behind was a testament to the ferocity of Thraxian siegecraft, glass towers supine like toppled columns, carapaces of vehicles scorched to stony husk. And beyond, looming above all, was the psionic resonance tower, the Raid. The resonance tower rose from the broken earth like a living obelisk, biometal spirals coiling around a central crystalline mast. Cradled within that mast was the Thraxian neural relay array, the very apparatus that linked the entire blockade fleet into one colossal psionic hive mind. If Selene's strike team could breach it, they could sever the command link, crippling human defenses. Selene Armitage crouched behind, a broken solar drone, her breath ragged as she peered across the battlefield. Her uniform was smeared with ash and blood, her own and that of half the crew. The 6 operatives behind her, each a testament to humanity's desperate ingenuity, wore bespoke Curie ether implants woven into their neural cortices. Blue veins of bioluminescent energy pulsed beneath their skin, empowering them to channel psionic bursts that could tear open bulkheads or shatter Thraxian nanofibers. Their entry point was a half-submerged maintenance hatch buried beneath rubble. Selene tapped the hatch's biolock with her psionic resonance node, an oblong crystal no larger than a thumb. The lock's circuitry lit in response and, with a soft pneumatic sigh, the hatch slid aside. Within, a dark shaft led down 20 meters to a service corridor. The air was stale, fetid with recycled coolant steam. A dim emergency mag light illuminated the path ahead, but every step was uncertain. The strike team split into 2 pairs, one to secure the lower conduit, the other to advance toward the tower's core. As Selene and Operative Riker Vance descended, the corridor's walls reverberated with distant tremors, footfalls of patrolling Thraxian bioservitors, and the staccato clatter of armored boots. In the dim glow, beetle-like sensor drones scuttled across gridded vents, scanning for hostile biothreads. Suddenly, a throbbing psionic pulse rippled through the hatch behind them. Celine craned her neck. Across the roof of the hatch, two Thraxian, psionic sentries emerged, their emerald optic clusters locking onto the intruders. Without hesitation, Riker loosed a concussive bolt that impacted the nearest sentry's carapace. The creature convulsed, tentacles seizing as its neuroshield collapsed in a violet wash. But more emerged, encased in jagged biometal suits, their translation matrices echoing alien war cries. Celine raised her hands, channeling a psionic lancing, stream that burned through flesh and machine alike. The first sentry's head burst in a bloom of viridian ichor. The second staggered back, its armor melting like candle wax. "Move," Celine hissed. "Riker, shield up." They sprinted down the corridor, leaving sentry husks ablaze. Ahead, Operative Mara Kyre had already disabled two auxiliary locks, her ether-fused fingers dissolving biolock chips. She beckoned, and they poured into a junction where the resonance conduit branched into multiple hollow-relay bays. Across the expanse at the heart of the tower, the neural array glowed with living emerald veins, the pulsing artery of Thraxian command. Before they could advance, the ground trembled violently. The resonance tower's sensor grid detected the breach. Corridors on either side disgorged squads of armored Thraxian legionnaires, psionic disruptors at hip, energy blades humming, and their multi-lensed helmets reflecting the neon lights of the core. "Aim for the Nexus," Celine whispered. "Disrupt the neural counterflow. Overload their SciFi shields." Riker nodded. Drawing a specialized Curie arc pistol, he fired a beam that zigzagged in fractal patterns, severing data conduits as they slammed into synthetic muscle pits. Mara lobbed a micro-ether grenade that erupted in violet ripples, collapsing several soldiers into writhing masses of psionic feedback, yet they were outnumbered. With precise coordination, the Thraxian legionnaires closed ranks, converging on Celine's team. The corridor became a maelstrom of gleaming blades and crackling psi energy. Celine raised her mind, projecting a barrier that bent the arcs of energy, sending them ricocheting off the corridor walls. Riker lunged forward, shoving an operative's neck into an ion shader, extinguishing life with a choked gasp. Celine reached the Nexus within 10 heartbeats. The neural array's pulsing veins glowed brighter with each skirmish, the very essence of Thraxian hive consciousness. She placed both hands upon the living crystal console, fingertips alight with concentrated psionic energy. "Everyone, cover me," she shouted. With a guttural chant, Celine unleashed all her mental force, a pure, scintillating cascade that surged into the neural veins, overloading them like a hydraulic dam blasted open. A blinding flash of emerald light raced along every filament. The resonance tower shuddered as its core vaporized, showering lethal shards of living crystal in every direction. A thunderous shockwave tore through the facility, expelling Celine and her team from the Nexus in a gust of psionic backlash. Corridors buckled, ceilings collapsed, and the legionnaires, caught unawares, fell like severed puppets, their armor succumbing to the sudden neural void. Celine crumpled to one knee, tears in her eyes as the aftershock faded. Her team staggered, bruised and bloodied but alive. "Mara," Celine rasped, voice hoarse. "Evacuate, head to the extraction point." Mara's eyes were wide with awe and grief. "Captain, we did it! Go!" Celine insisted. She placed a hand over her chest where her psionic node throbbed. The neural feedback had burned her to the core. Each breath was agony. Yet she forced herself to stand, limping toward a nearby maintainer's hatch. "I'll rendezvous at 3 clicks northwest. Go." Before Mara could argue, Selena slipped into the hatch. The hatch door groaned shut, isolating her in utter darkness as the resonance tower imploded with a gargantuan roar that reverberated across the city. Aftermath on the surface. The sky rained luminescent fragments of imploding biometal. In orbit, the Thraxian armada, once a perfect circle of dreadnoughts and cruisers, oscillated like a wounded leviathan. The neural hive mind that bound them fractured into discordant shards. Weapons arrays flickered, warp drives shuddered, and captains barked frantic orders to reform defensive coils. Within seconds, the blockade collapsed from within as each vessel scrambled to regain independent control. Admiral Halsey's voice crackled over all channels. All units, cease fire. Thraxian command nexus offline. Thraxian fleet is surrendering. Hold your positions and await further instructions. Far below, Colonel Voss peered through the smoky haze, astonished. Psionic disruptors in the eastern sector flickered out. Thraxian infanteryists dropped their weapons, eyes cloudy with confusion. Voss allowed himself a rare smile, though his face was smeared with soot. "Reyes!" he roared. "Stand down! Thraxians are pulling back." A surge of jubilation swept among the battered defenders. Soldiers lowered their rifles. Refugees emerged, from shelters blinking in disbelief at the sudden silence. The once roaring skies were now punctuated only by distant alarms and the whir of Kyrie reinforcements touching down on makeshift runways. Amid the celebration, a battered throng of wounded and shell-shocked survivors filed into triage stations. Field medics, doctors and nurses in white and silver uniforms, moved with urgency, attending to shattered limbs and burned flesh. Voss knelt beside a young engineer whose torso was riddled with shard lacerations. "You're going to make it," he murmured, though bleary eyes betrayed the young man's pain. Nearby, Celine emerged from a blast door, escorted by a lone Kyrie operative who supported her weight. Her once pristine uniform was ruined, torn at the shoulder, stained crimson. Her breathing was slow, labored. As the Kyrie operative lowered her onto a hover stretcher, Voss spotted her and surged forward. "Captain!" he exclaimed, rushing to her side. Reyes followed, despair in her eyes. Celine managed a faint nod. "Tell Admiral Halsey, the mission succeeded. Thraxians have no link. We've crippled their psionic grid." Voss's voice caught. "By the stars, Celine, you saved the colony." She tried to smile but coughed as the neural feedback still shimmered in her vision. "Get me to medbay," she wheezed. "Then, find Mara and the others." Reyes grasped Celine's hand. "They're safe. They're exfiltrating now. Kyrie corvettes are landing on the northern plateau. They'll bring everyone home." Celine closed her eyes, exhaustion crashing over her like a tidal wave. "Good," she whispered. "Let them know. Freedom is worth any sacrifice." Dawn over. Aphrodite, as the first pale light of dawn crept over the shattered city, the battered defenders gathered in the central plaza of Aurealis Gate. Holographic banners fluttered in the wind. Earth's cobalt blue globe, the emerald sigils of the Kyrie Collective, and the scarlet crest of the United Earth Intelligence. Onwards, beyond them, the sky was streaked with contrails of departing Thraxian vessels, fading into the void, vanquished by one resolute act of defiance. Admiral Halsey's holofeed beamed to the gathered crowd. His uniform bore new scorch marks. He had personally directed the orbital blockade from the bridge. On his weathered face, pride and solemn relief warred for dominance. "Today," he intoned, voice resonating across the plaza, "we celebrate not only our victory but our unity. Aphrodite Prime stands because every soul here refused to yield. To the civilians who took shelter, the soldiers who bled in dusty alleys, and the brave operatives who stormed the resonance tower, your valor has secured a future for this world." Applause erupted, tentative at first, then thunderous, echoing off the broken walls that had so recently felt the sting of siege. Among the throng, Celine, pale and bandaged but resolute, rose onto the hover stretcher. Reyes and Voss flanked her, each offering a supporting arm. With every step, they advanced toward the central dais where a war-weary but jubilant Kyrie envoy stood alongside human dignitaries. When Celine finally reached the dais, she raised a trembling hand. In that moment of quiet, the crowd hushed. She spoke, voice soft but unwavering. Aphrodite Prime was more than a colony. It was a symbol, a proving ground for humanity's dreams among the stars. Today we have shown that our spirit is indomitable. To those who sought to crush us, know this: we may bleed, we may fall, but we will rise again. and if you come seeking war, you will find only death. Silence reigned for a heartbeat before it shattered into roar. The crowd stormed forward as one, soldiers saluting, citizens weeping tears of gratitude, and Kiri envoys laying wreaths of luminescent flora at Celine's feet. Overhead, Kiri corvettes and human cruisers soared, in fierce loops, releasing cascades of bioluminescent flares that painted the scarred sky in shimmering arcs. Below, the ground quaked with hope. Aphrodite Prime's future, once teetering on the brink, had been spared. In the radiant glow of dawn, the people of the planet, battered but unbroken, emerged from their shelters. They would rebuild. They would remember. And as they looked toward the stars, they knew that regardless of the darkness that lay ahead, the flame of humanity's resolve would burn ever brighter. And somewhere in the blackened orbit above, the last Thraxian dreadnought, its emerald hull pockmarked with scars, retreated beyond the nebula. The Thraxian Empire had learned, as all empires must, that when a human declared, "You want war? Then you've chosen death." They spoke, not merely of conflict, but of an unwavering conviction that would echo across the cosmos for eons to come.